Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Today we'll be discussing about some of the fundamental aspects of South Indian classical music. This is very important because to have an understanding of the larger picture, we need to understand some of the minute details which govern the system itself. If we look at language, let's take a parallel to this. If we look at language, we see that we have alphabets, and these alphabets go to become words. These words come together in a proper way to make sentences, and then we have what we call as an essay, which is built with a number of sentences. Now, from language to language, we see that the number of alphabets may differ. For example, in English language, we have 26 alphabets. In Hindi, a different concept. And like this, for each language, we see that there are different number of alphabets. But the function of these alphabets is the same. As I mentioned earlier, it is about forming words and then sentences. So similarly, in the case of music also, we see that music is a language of emotion, feelings, sound, and it has got its own alphabets. Here, of course, we do not have a large number of alphabets like in language. There are only about 7 alphabets or swaras, which constitute the entire music system. These 7 swaras are common to the entire Indian classical music system. That is, if you take Hindustani music or Carnatic music, we see that sa, ri, ga, ma, pa, dha, ni, known as Shadja, Rishabha, Gandhara, Madhyama, Panchama, Daivata and Nishada are the 7 swaras or Sapta swaras which govern the entire classical musical system of India. Now, how these swaras occur in each system is slightly different, and we will be discussing about that also later. But now, coming to the 7 swaras, we see that there are 12 swarasthanas which emerge from these 7 swaras. And in the nomenclature of Carnatic music or South Indian classical music, we see that there are 16 swaras. Now, let us see how these swaras are actually formed. Before that, I would also like to share about the how or what is the root word for, or why the particular swara has been named as such: Shadja, Rishabha, Gandhara, Madhyama, Panchama, Daivata, Nishada. If we look at the word Shadja, we see that here the word Shadja refers to, earlier it was said that it is born from the 6 sources in the human body, and this is the proclamation of various Lakshana Granthas. But of course, the other theory that Shadja, that is the note which gives rise to the other 6 notes, is known as Shadja, makes more sense here. Now, if you look at the Saptaswaras, they are very, very vital, I would say, in terms of the formation of the music system itself, because without the Saptaswaras, the music would have been abstract sound. Now, if we didn't have these Saptaswaras, which are a concrete way, I would say, of expressing our music, then we would just have mere sounds, and as I mentioned earlier also, it would be totally abstract, and we will not be able to connect anything or stabilize anything in the system itself. Emergence of clearly distinguishable 7 swaras, that nada got concretized and realized as sound structures. This is very, very important aspect in our history. And as I mentioned earlier, the name Shadja has got a logical terminology, has got a sense here. And the other notes, for example, here, if you look at the Madhyama, Madhyama means the middle point. So the Madhyama, not mathematically or acoustically, but we see that Sa, Ri, Ga, Ma, Pa, Dha, Ni, in that Sa, Ri, Ga becomes one side, then the Ma becomes the central note, then Padani on the other side. So that way Madhyama, the name got coined. Panchama, of course, again refers to the 5th note. So Sa, Ri, Ga, Ma, Pa, the 5th note came to be known as Panchama. But the name of the other notes, that is when we are talking about the Rishabha or the Gandhara, Daivata, Nishada, There is actually no logic and it just is been named. This is also similar to, I would say, like how we name a child. At random, we give names for a child which is born. So all the time we need not look for some logic or meaning in terms of whether the name and that person is actually connected in a proper way. It can be just a name for a person. So similarly here also we see that the names Rishabha, Gandhara, Devata, Nishada have just come about to be there. Earlier notes were, again, you see that if you look at the history, it's very interesting also to see how in the historical works we see that the notes have been connected to the cry and call of various birds and animals. Like this sa is belongs to the cry of some particular bird, or read that of some animal. Like this, lot of references given. But today we have come a long way, and if you look at this particular perspective or the way they have looked at it, it may not seem quite logical and it seems rather unscientific also, because just a particular cry of an animal cannot denote any particular note as such, because we also don't know what is the Adhara Shadja here, which has evolved later of course, and today we are able to relate all the notes actually on the base of the Adhara Shadja. The Adhara Shadja is like, the base on which you are able to identify or relate all the other notes. So relating these notes to the cries of animals actually does not have any scientific purpose. So today I would say that this concept is totally obsolete. Coming to the concept of three main aspects in this fundamentals of our Indian classical music, we have what we call as the Shruti, Swara and Swarasthana. Now if you look at sounds in general in nature, we see that some of the sounds are musical, some are non-musical. Soft sound is pleasant to hear and harsh sound is noise. So music for that matter involves a lot of soft and pleasant sounds, and that's why it is very nice also to hear. It is a nice feel, I would say, to hear music, and that's why we also like listening to music. Now if somebody sings in a very, very loud voice which sounds very harsh, then it becomes very discordant on the ear also. So that would not be music, but that would be sheer noise. So for music itself, this concept of being pleasant is a very, very important attribute. And in the audible frequency also we see that there is a particular range, in the sense that when something is too soft, suppose I sing, were you able to hear me? I did sing sa, but it was so soft that you were not able to hear it because of the fact that it was very, very low in frequency. Now sometimes what happens, especially when you go to the kind of light music, or sometimes they keep it in very high decibel, and at that time what happens, the sound cannot be, the ear rather cannot withstand this music. It becomes very, very kind of too much for the ear to even handle. And that's why we say that even while today we are using the mobile and earphones, for the earphones also they really kind of codify as to what is the decibel in which we have to hear the music, because if you hear it too loud for too long, then the eardrum will get damaged. So that way we see that music has to have a certain frequency in order to become pleasant on the ear. Etymologically, Shruti is the smallest audible sound capable of being distinguished by a human ear. Now, Shruti is something which is naturally born and it is prevalent in nature. And we would say that the concept of music, that is from all the Shrutis available, man has actually codified the system of music through his own intelligence, through his own thinking process. He has devised the Saptaswaras, given each note its particular placement. So that way we could also say that through the genius of man, this whole system of classical music has evolved into one of the highest systems of music in the world. Shruti is known as the Prakriti Dhwani. That's why Prakriti means nature. So it is a Prakriti Dhwani, or something which is born from nature itself. Now, if you look at universe again, for everything we actually draw our inspiration from nature only. So nature actually gives us a cue for many, many things. Like I mentioned earlier also about the concept of painting. When you are drawing a picture, for example, and I tell you, you draw a scenery, immediately you think about the tree, the river, a house, a mountain. Now, where from do you get inspiration, or where from do you get the clue as to how to fit all this to make a scenery? It is from the nature only, because nature gives us all the guidelines as to, again, coming back to the scenery. If you want to draw a mountain, a river, and say a tree as part of the scenery, you have to know that on the top of the, suppose you are given a page, on the top portion of the page you draw the mountain, then comes the river, and in the river bed or river side you will see that a tree is to be placed. So again, also when you talk about the color combination, when we talk about the mountain, we generally paint it as brown. When we talk about the river, it is generally blue. When it's a tree, the branches and the trunk are all brown and the leaves are all green. So where from do we get the inspiration, or where from do we get to know that this is the particular color for that particular object? Obviously, it is from nature. So similarly also we see that for the sound, different kinds of sounds that emanate in our music system, the universe becomes some kind of an inspiration. Similarly for meter also, that is a rhythm that we have adopted in Carnatic music or Hindustani music, nature again is the inspiration for us, which gives us different kinds of rhythm. You see there is rhythm in the rainfall, in the raindrops, rhythm in the flow of the river, rhythm in so many things you are able to see. So that again has been the inspiration for man to create various kinds of rhythms. And also we know that, for example, the heartbeat has to have a regular rhythm. Now, if the rhythm becomes kind of wavered and it is not in a proper order, we know that there is something wrong. So that way the universe becomes a great inspiration in terms of giving us a lot of material for our sound and meter that is a part of our music system itself. Now, coming to Shruti, it is called Dhvani, but it can be distinguished, or rather it cannot be distinguished, I would say, without getting developed into something more. A Shruti is a very, very minute kind of a sound. So now it has to be rather, it has to take the avatar, or it has to take the form of a swara to get a concrete entity. So the swara becomes a very, very important element in our whole system. Different sounds with different intensities become different swaras. And also we see that the abstract sounds become concrete with the help of swaras. So the swaras are the most important, the most vital aspect of both Hindustani and Carnatic music. Now, even when we create a composition, for example, now in a composition we have a combination of melody, rhythm and words. Now, if you are going to notate this melody, you have to take the aid of swaras. So, suppose there is a composition in Mohanam, you notate it such that that particular composition is in the form of a Mohanam, and what are the swaras taken in the melody are notated. If it is in some other raga like Kalyani, then according to the Kalyani raga, you notate your composition. So, the concept of notation itself implies that various swaras come into the fold, and the swaras only give meaning to that composition in terms of the melody. So the swaras, without swaras, the whole system of our music itself is meaningless, I would say. So here again re-emphasizing the importance of swaras. Shrutis are infinite, and but swaras are limited in number, and swaras are pleasant to hear. Let us look at the 7 swaras that have come into our Carnatic music or Hindustani music. Both the systems have got the concept of 7 swaras. I will sing first the 7 swaras in the Maya Mala Gaula scale, because of the fact that that is the basic scale in which all the students learn their music itself. So starting with Maya Mala Gaula, the Sapta swaras goes like Sa Re Ga Ma Pa Da Ni Sa Sa Ni Da Pa Ma Ga Re Sa sa ri ga ma pa da ni sa sa ni da pa ma ga re sa sa ri ga ma pa da ni sa ni da pa ma ga re sa. Now you would have also observed here how I sang the note sa twice. So like sa ri ga ma pa da ni sa, again I sing sa. So that implies the completion of a particular octave. That is very, very important. The eighth note again is a repetition of the sa itself to give you a complete octave or a sthai. But if you look at the notes themselves, sa ri ga ma pa dha ni, 7 notes. Now in the 7 notes, we see that each note, that is first the shadja, is very, very important in terms of giving kind of a connectivity or an understanding of the different notes and its varieties. So shadja, again we would say that it's an avikrita swara in the sense that it does not have any varieties. The shadja when sung is always sa, and there is no variety here. Similarly, if you look at the note pa, it is again does not have any variety. It has got a specific position in the whole scale like pa, sa, pa. So that way we could say that the Panchama is also an avikrita swara, that is sa and pa do not admit of any varieties and are constant in the scale of 7 notes that we have sung here now. Now let us look at the notes, the varieties of notes. If you look at the 12 swarasthanas, how do they emerge? We have sa and pa. Then if we look at ri, we see that there are 2 varieties of ri, there are 2 varieties of ga, 2 varieties of ma, 2 varieties of dha, 2 varieties of ni. So that makes it sa, pa, ri 2 varieties, ga 2 varieties, ma 2 varieties, and then dha 2 varieties, ni 2 varieties, making them 12 swarasthanas. So now let us look at the entire gamut of the 12 swarasthanas, how they occur. Sa, ri, sa, ri, ri 1 and 2 or the Shuddha Komala. I'll use the numbers 1, 2 for you to have a better or easier understanding here, because as I said again, in the nomenclature of the swaras or the names of the swaras also start differing when it comes into the Carnatic music board. So we'll use the number 1, 2 as such here now. So sa, ri, 1 and 2. Then ga, sa, ga, ga 1 and 2. Sa, ma, ma 1 and 2. Sa, pa, sa, dha, sa, dha 1 and 2. Sa, ni, ni 1 and 2. Then sa. Let's now look at, this is the Arona Krama that I sang. Let's now sing the same swaras in the Avarona Krama and see how they sound. Sa, ni, ni 2, ni 1, coming the reverse order. So it will be 2 followed by 1 here. Then sa, da, sa, dha, sa, pa, sa, ma, sa, ma, sa, ga, sa, ga, sa, re, sa, re, sa, sa. So like this we see that the 7 swaras give rise to this kind of 12 swarasthanas. And the entire music, whether is Carnatic music or Hindustani music, operate on this particular aspect of these 12 swarasthanas only. But in the context of Carnatic music, we see that there is a slight difference in the way in which the notes are handled. So thus, in Carnatic music, while we have the 12 swarasthanas, actually there are 16 swaras. And these 16 swaras that we have in Carnatic music makes it slightly different in the sense that in Hindustani music, when we are forming a ragam, we see that sometimes or many times we have what we call it, we may use 2 varieties of a same note. So for example, a ragam like Brindavani, for example, sa re ma pa ni sa sa ni pa ma re sa sa re ma pa ni sa sa ni pa ma re sa. So where in this particular ragam you are able to see that both the sa re ma pa ni, the tivra ni, sa ni, the komal ni. So it's an interplay of 2 varieties of the same note that come here into existence, or sometimes you have in ragas like Behag, pa ma ga ma ga ga ma pa ni da sa ni da pa ma pa ma ga ma ga pa ma ga ma ga, or even subsequently pa ma ma ga. Like this, 2 varieties of the same note occurring in a particular scale or ragam is something very, very commonly, or it's a part of the grammar, I would say, of the Hindustani music. Whereas in Carnatic music, we have different system or a different approach. So in the subsequent session, we'll see how these 12 swarasthanas that we have turn into 16 swaras in the context of Carnatic music, and how whole system of ragas has also evolved around these 16 swaras.